So this is my fully restored James Nova cyclocross bike. This is a 2004-year model, and it features a carbon front fork, full carbon front fork, and a Shimano 105 9-speed group set. It's a 105 triple. So the interesting thing is the rear derailleur is 105. The front shifter is Tiagra, it's a Tiagra triple, and the front crankset is a Truvativ ISIS Drive Alita. I do have a video on how to service this ISIS bottom bracket. If you guys are interested, it should be in the link on the top right corner of the screen. And so it's a 9-speed crankset, and it's a triple, and I think the gearing is 52, something about 40, and then 32, something like that. Are correct in the description if it was wrong during the post-processing, but this is a triple. Okay, so very useful for a wide variety of terrains. You can go really fast with the large crank, and you can go really slow and really powerful pedaling for going up hills with the smallest chainring on the front. The rear cassette is a 11 to 25, so pretty standard gearing for a cyclocross bike back in the days. And I know nowadays everyone wants super large gearing, and it's always, 11, 12 speed. Do you need that? Probably not. And of course, the classic cantilever brakes. This is Avid Shorty 4. It's a mid-range cantilever brake. In terms of braking performance, not as good as a V-brake. So if you guys are wanting the best braking performance as good as a hydraulic disc brake, get the V-brake conversion and get a Avid single digit 7. That is, in my opinion, the best V-brake you can get. You can get the same performance as a disc hydraulic brake. The only downside for those kind of brakes, non-disc brakes, is during rainy rides, they are kind of less effective, but they still work, just less effective compared to disc brakes in the rainy conditions. So if you're like me, always riding in the sun, you absolutely do not need a disc brake. Plus they add weights, of course. But that is my personal opinion towards cantilever brakes. Now those brakes are still in pretty good condition on this bike. Again, 2004-year-old model, so they're almost 20 years old. And as you can see, it's still a very beautiful bike. The 105 flight deck shifter, they kind of works okay. So in terms of ergonomics, I think nowadays shifter levers are definitely improved in terms of ergonomics. Those are still on the older side, so the upshifting, a lot of times I would actually hit the brake during upshifting because I tend to press it a little bit when I try to upshift. So the newer, the newer brakes, that newer shifter levers that came out nowadays, and especially electronic shifters, does not have this kind of an issue. That's kind of from the old days. So that is one kind of a quirk that I want to point out if you guys are looking to get a vintage bike. And I also got a carbon fiber seat post for the seat tube, and actually I had to use a converter because this is actually very thin seat tube. It's a 25mm seat tube that a seat post that I got for another bike conversion. However, I didn't use it, so I got a shim and just made this a little bit thicker and put it in this bike, which actually fits perfectly. And again, carbon fiber, slightly thinner, provides a little bit more of the smoothness to the rides. But again, the most important thing for smoothness is really your tire choice and the tire pressure. Okay, now those are standard, back in the day, standard cyclocross tires, 700 by 30C tires. They are not, super fancy tires because this is a wire tire. Basic level. Does it ride okay? Yes, it rides perfectly fine for joyrides, and like even if I go, onto a little rough surface on the grass and whatever, it works perfectly fine. Okay, so again, this kind of bike, it's beautiful to look at. It's great for joyride. If you want to use it for racing, you might be able to, but it's just not going to be top performance because the bike itself is slightly heavier. With all the carbon fiber things that I put in here, it still weighs around 22.5 pounds with the plastic pedals. Okay, so 22.5 pounds, and this is the Reynolds 631 air hardened main tubes. So I think this tube, this is Reynolds 631, this is Reynolds 631, this one is, and those two tubes are actually not Reynolds 631. So they actually kind of cheaped out just a little bit by not using the whole 631 tube set, but only using for the front triangle area, which, you know, reduces the weight just a little bit and still rides extremely smooth. Now this is a, you know, Chromoly full steel bike, and the ride quality compared to carbon, it really depends. So if you have a carbon race bike, the carbon race bike is going to be more rigid, it's going to be more less forgiving compared to this bike, which uses a Reynolds 631. But if you have a carbon endurance bike that's actually designed for comfort, you're gonna find that carbon endurance bike just as comfortable, or sometimes probably even more comfortable than a steel bike of this age. Okay, so it really depends. When people say carbon bike and they talk about stiffness, they talk about, you know, compliance, you really have to look at the type of the bike that, you know, that carbon frame is designed for. So you can't really just generalize the carbon in general. But if you get a steel bike, you will get that compliance. Ultimately beauty, what you lose is slightly more weight and slightly more stiffness in the triangle area when you're pedaling really hard, like in a racing condition during a race. So that is something to keep in mind. And the wheel set, I actually upgraded the wheel set on this bike, used my part bin wheel set. This is a SRAM S30 AL. This is actually, back in the days, a very lightweight racing wheel set with ceramic bearings, so they do work perfectly fine on this bike. Again, I'm not gonna take this onto mountain bike trails. I have a mountain bike for that, but this for general rides, joy rides around the neighborhood and going over grass and roots, it's perfectly fine. So some other things I want to talk about. Cantilever brakes, yes, definitely the biggest downside is the cantilever brakes. And also keep in mind, if you convert this into V brakes, you'll need a V brake adapter for the shifters, because the shifters is designed for cantilever brakes and caliper brakes. So that is also something to take into consideration. Otherwise, this is a fantastic cyclocross bike that's perfect for gravel riding, if you guys are up for that kind of a thing. And I just want to give you guys a view of what the bike looks like and its capabilities, its potentials. And quite interestingly, let's talk about the price of the bike. So I got the bike in its original setup for $170. And it was left by someone probably in the open air, so it's got a little bit of rust, and I got the rust all removed, and I replaced every parts that I can replace. For example, the stem, it came with a very long stem that's kind of hard to reach. I got a short stem with a more rise, so this bike now is a little bit more like a gravel bike with a slightly more upright riding position compared to before, which is a full racing cyclocross bike. And I got a very nice full carbon aerial handlebar, and this handlebar is from one of the custom bikes that someone was selling, and I know this handlebar, if you buy it alone, it's more than $250. So the funny thing is, this handlebar itself costs more than the whole bike setup. But that's just how it goes when it comes to bike restoration. Sometimes everything else might be really cheap, but there's just this one part that's going to be super expensive, you know, to replace or to upgrade. But again, you don't really have to go with a $250 handlebar. You can always go with a nice $50 carbon fiber handlebar that's going to save you probably 5-6 ounces of the weight overall. But this is it. So alright guys, any questions, feel free to ask me in the comment section down below. Otherwise, I hope you found this video helpful in helping you make a decision on whether you should invest in a vintage cyclocross bike or not. And if you found this video helpful, please do give me a thumbs up and like, and I should highly appreciate it. Thanks again, and take care guys.